age of radio.
Today's episode, Missy and I are talking about the value of now.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Welcome everyone to another episode of On Finding Peace. This is the podcast where Missy and I talk about daily life tips where we can help find our inner peace and our happiness and to be able to live it on a daily basis regardless of what's going on around us. So today we're looking at the value of now, living in the present. So I see once again, Missy is living in the present inside, not outside. A little
it's
warm.
Too hot out there.
Oh no.
Yeah. I don't want to melt on camera. It wouldn't be pretty, I'm sure. And you're outside enjoying it.
I am outside. It's a little humid and muggy. We had rain earlier and rain coming in, so I'm kind of in the midst of not an eye of the storm, but it kind of feels like it.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, no, it's been pretty nice here. It's not been too bad, but it is a little hot out. So I figured I'd stay inside and feel a little of the cool breeze.
Nice.
And I heard your birds in the background a little bit ago, and boy, that just definitely brings you into the moment. So it must be nice being out there.
Oh, it is. I try to spend as much time out here as I can, except for those who do watch our videos. In the colder months, I'm in a shed. But so yes, I do try to be out here because we do have a lot of wildlife. I have a lot of squirrels that run around and the birds that go by. My dog sitting next to me. So
nice.
Yeah. If you hear ruckus, he's going to go chase a squirrel that he never catches.
Nice. That's awesome. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. He lives in the power of now. I mean, I'm sorry, the value of now. He definitely understands the value.
Yeah, I've always been tempted, and here I'm going to give this out, and people are going to take my idea, but I don't really care. I've always been tempted to, write something or do a talk on the mindfulness of dogs.
Yeah.
I really do think that the more you're around them, the more you study them, the more you think about them, they're living in the present moment.
Absolutely.
Partly because that's all they know. They don't know anything different, but regardless, they're living in the present.
So okay, I mean, it kind of applies to the conversation today. So I'm going to go ahead and ask, do you think that dogs don't domesticate based on past experiences?
I think we as humans get in trouble because we know about time. So we can sense the passage of time. I know what time we started this video. I know how long we're going to do this. I have an idea if I'm at a function that seems to be going longer than I thought it would. I start to get antsy because I understand the concept of time.
Right.
The dog doesn't know a concept of time.
I agree.
So the dog doesn't know it's, this time o'clock, and at this time o'clock, I'm going to whatever. And, when it's this time, I'm going to do this. I leave the house, I come back. The dog doesn't really know how long I was gone.
Yeah.
Just knows that some moment I was there, some moment I wasn't, the next moment I am. doesn't really understand you were gone for so long. You know,
Oh,
you were just
I can
gone.
totally agree with that, because I walk out the door and I go to the mailbox and I come back and my dogs are like, oh, "You're back," and I'm like, I was like 2 seconds out the door. However, when it comes to like feeding time, or knowing when I get up and what my routine is in the morning, I have one dog that whines at the same time every morning because she's like, "Hey, it's time for you to get up," and my other dog paces near the food bowl when it's 5 o'clock, because that's about the time I feed her. And so anyway, I just was curious, because I think that when I talk about the power of the present moment, right? I think that part of society's trouble is that we bring the past into now, instead of letting now be what it is, a new moment, a new opportunity. We bring in past beliefs, and so in some books that I read, they call it domestication, right? Where we learn from our past mistakes, but we bring it into the future. And so I'm just curious, that's what brought me to that point with the dogs, is because I feel like, if my dog gets in trouble and I'm yelling, "Hey, don't do that," and the dog's like, "Oh God, I don't want to be in trouble." And then as soon as they do that same thing over again, and I'm like, "Get inside, go to your room," because we have our crates, what we call the dog's room, and they go to their room, but they understand that, like, "Uh-oh, I did something I shouldn't have done," So I'm just curious, like, it's definitely interesting to explore something like that, based on animals, not humans.
Oh, and I totally agree. And, my fascination with the cognitive behavioral piece is typically the behavioral piece. So this plays right into, what I look at. And definitely when you look, let's say specifically with dogs, I mean, they're going to learn, but I'm going to put the learn in quotes, in the sense that they can become conditioned. So what they remember is something happens, the stimulus, and then there is a response to the stimulus.
Sure.
So, and we all have our cycles, I mean, some people, not me, but some people can get up in the morning without an alarm at the same time. They're really good within those cycles. So I think that's where the dogs come in. If they're sitting at that food bowl at 5 o'clock every night,
it's a cycle. Yeah.
Right. Their body is telling them in that 24-hour period, this is about the time that I'm hungry. This is, what I feel. They don't know it's 5 o'clock. And I'll bet with the daylight savings time change and all,
it'll be
I'll bet
earlier
that
or
messes them up.
later. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So you change the clock over to, say, 6 o'clock, and they're not going to be there at that new time. They're probably going to be there until you recondition them.
Right.
To that hour difference, and then eventually, they're going to get it. So to me, that also explores what's important about the mindfulness and living in the present, because for me, the past, I think it is only important for lessons learned. But I agree with you. I think we sometimes bring too much of our past to the present, even though the past is over, or we're dwelling too much in the past and missing the present moment. Where for animals, and especially the dogs, they learn from the past. So they know what certain things mean. They know our tone of voice. They know, because they've been conditioned to know that.
Yeah,
so it's their
and the
education.
energy. Yeah.
I mean, they're not sitting around thinking, well, what do I do to, please, somebody, or what can I do to get in trouble? I mean, that they don't think that stuff through. They just act.
Yeah, for sure. And, and I think that in some way, shape, or form, we are conditioned not to do that. Right. Because curious little children, we want to do things, we want to climb, we want to touch hot stoves, we want to, and, we've been told, we've been conditioned not to do things of that nature. And so I think that it definitely conditions us to bring those things into the future. Like I have 3 children at home, my niece and my 2 boys, and it is a very difficult thing for me to do, to not try to control their behavior, being that I'm working on letting them tap into their own intuition, because I have an inner spirit and they have an inner spirit, and it's going to lead them to everywhere they need to be. Right. And then at the same time, there's certain behaviors that I was taught not to allow, right? And or certain age stipulations. And so that's been a practice for me, so that I can, try to be now instead of where I came from, or what I think that their behavior should be. So it's definitely been something that I've been challenged with lately. And I guarantee it's all because of my own conditioning, and me not being present.
Well, and that's really what I think is important for us to know, is we are the products of our history. And, to remember that, where I am right this second, if we want to look at being, present. So right this moment, my values, my thoughts, my morals, my opinions, all of that stuff has been shaped and formed by my history. So positive or negative, I don't like to use that. The point is, it just is.
Right.
And what I like to say to my clients is that if you don't like who you are right now, then you change it. And it's easier said than done, but it's possible. It's not that I'm stuck with who I am right now, because then I start to learn different ways. I can recondition myself in certain ways.
It's a muscle one way or another. And I mean, like, that has been so prominent for me lately. Like, I'm practicing doing something different. And sometimes it's really hard because, I feel like I let my mom down, you know what I mean? Because I know she programmed me, lovingly, to be this certain way. And when I kind of go against, well, that's different. Maybe there's a different way to look at this. Let's change our perspective. Let's see if we can make this work. And then there's things I'm sure she wishes she didn't teach me, we can, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this, is the, the mental thoughts that you have that are, that are not good for you, right? Or what we would consider negative. And we would feed that. Like, I would spiral down a rabbit hole. And of course, that's not being present. That's living in the past or trying to predict the future with those things. That's definitely not a presence. And learning that there's other voices, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say like there's voices in my head. I don't mean it like that.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that if there is. However, the voices that I particularly want to hear from are the ones that are going to, make me feel better about myself. And it's okay if you fail. It's okay. You can move on, or you just keep moving forward, or that didn't work out. We'll try something different. Right. And I can only imagine that, like, people from our past, like, what is it? Who created the light bulb? Thomas Edison?
Edison.
Yeah, 1,000 different ways, right, to not make a light bulb. But he just kept going with it. And so that voice had to be prominent of, like, you're going to get it. This didn't work, but just keep on going. It's just not the time. Things didn't line up properly. And I think that that's a presencing voice in our head, right, where we just can brush it off and go, okay, well, what's next? And
right.
Because it is a new moment and a new opportunity. And again, I'll give a prime example. Last week, I was fussing at my son, my oldest son. He's a good kid, wonderful kid, very smart. I have nothing but good things to say. And he drives me crazy because he's my son, right? He does it intentionally. So it is actually quite humorous when I'm not in a mental headspace where I'm trying to be in the masculine mode of getting things done. But I happened to be fussing at him. And in the moment that I was fussing at him, pointing his fingers, realizing that those 3 fingers were coming right back at me, I was able to be in that moment and go, how is he reflecting you? That's presence right there.
Mhm.
And I immediately stopped and was like, okay, I'm done. And walked out of the room, thought to myself, okay, where can I be better about, the reaction that I just had? How can I diffuse my own emotions over it? And then within 2 minutes, I literally was like, okay, come downstairs. Like, I'm sorry I yelled at you. I shouldn't have yelled at you. I love you. And, we're going to both try to do better, I'm sure, and then we moved on. But it was like, that was the presencing voice in my head going, wait a minute, hold up. It takes two here. He's showing you something. And I was able to be like, thank you for that gift, right? Thank you for the gift in that moment of being like, okay, well, maybe I'm being selfish. Maybe this is me being selfish, because I think that's what the argument was about. And so I was able to look at that and heal just that quickly. Just the recognition of the emotions that I had and how I was feeling towards him. I was showing me myself. And so that's huge. And that takes practice, because I haven't always been able to do that. It's usually hindsight. Oh, I shouldn't have yelled at my kid. You know what I mean? But in that moment, while I was doing it, I was like, okay, this is not where I want to be right now. This is not what I want to be doing.
And there is that big difference of looking at, after the fact, saying, okay, maybe I shouldn't have yelled at my kid. And then you would ask yourself, well, why shouldn't I have? And, all of that, versus in that moment to be able to stop yourself and have that reflective nature to say, wait a minute, I need to change what I'm doing here.
Right, because it's not working.
Yeah. And the only way we can do that is by focusing our thoughts and energies into the present moment.
Right.
When we're distracted with the past or living in the past, we're going to be anxious and non-reflective because we're dealing with a time period that we can't control. Because it's over. I mean, it's done with. I can't go back there and fix it, change it. And the future is the same. If I'm worried about, what's going to happen in the future, there's nothing I can do about it. I can make some preparation for what I can imagine could be the future.
Right.
But in reality, there's nothing that I can do.
Either way you look at it, it's an illusion in the mind, right? I'm not saying it's an illusion that it ever happened. That's not what I mean. But it is an illusion of, what you could do to change the past, or what you can do to predict or control the future, right? And the amazing thing about being in that moment, in the power of right then and there, was there was no guilt, there was no shame, there was no beating myself up, there was none of that. It was just like, wait, okay. It immediately diffused my emotions and had me correct myself to be like, okay, wait, I'm standing on the ego side. I want to be standing on the spirit side, looking at him, loving him unconditionally. And so in order to do that, I need to correct where I'm standing first. And I encourage our listeners to practice that, because everybody's like, the people that I talk to, my clients come to me and they say, it's so hard. I understand it's hard right now, but it won't be hard forever. It's like learning how to ride that bike, right? You didn't jump on and immediately, have your balance and know everything that you were supposed to do. But as you practice and you got better and better and better, and it can happen that fast. I mean, don't get me wrong. Some people will be able to just be like, oh, I do that all the time. And the rest of us will be like, jaw dropped, what? Like how, but it's just being in the practice of centering yourself, coming from your heart and looking at other people constantly with love. And when you notice that trigger, if you just recognize the emotion in that moment, it will help diffuse that trigger immediately.
Yep. Well, when I have clients who are talking about all of the anxiety that they feel, And I talk to them about anxiety from my own experience of
Mm-hmm.
lots of anxiety and how I've worked through that. But it's similar to one of the practices that I encourage them to do is that every time you feel anxious, if you stop yourself and notice, where is my thought right now? Where is my head? Where are my mind? Because it's going to be either in the past or the future. And consciously bring yourself back to the present moment. Because in most cases, in that present moment, there is nothing to be anxious about. The anxiety is coming from that uncontrollable past and future.
Yeah.
But in most cases, I don't need to be anxious right now. And if I do, if I am in a situation that in this present moment it needs to be anxious, well, then that's my normal reaction to get me to do something. So what am I going to do about what's happening in my present situation? So either way, you're going to reduce your anxiety by bringing your thoughts to the present moment.
Well, and there's a couple things there. So there's the react/response mechanism that we all have, because usually when we're in that past or present predicting, we are reacting, not responding. And two, I can remember I said to one of my coaches when I first started coaching, how do you tell the difference? Like, how do you know that you are in the past or predicting the future or actually present? And I can't really use the words that she gave to me because they're a little explicit, but she said
yes,
it's
basically
it's it's the difference between a punch in the face or, let's just say eating an ice cream or something that you enjoy, right? Like,
yes.
So there's a difference and you just know and you feel it, right? And so I encourage you, I just want to encourage people that just remember, it's just that practice. It's just keep doing it over and over again, even no matter how foreign it feels. It will get less foreign feeling because we've been flexing that muscle of the opposite for so long. It will just feel strange and weird and challenging. And then all of a sudden it'll be like, oh, this is natural. This is what I feel good about and I enjoy. And, some of the things that you can do to presence yourself is really just, go outside, listen to the birds, listen to the sounds of the crackling in the leaves, the squirrels running, the birds chirping, whatever. And it will really tune you in. Of course, people say breathing constantly, like you can't go a breath before or go a breath after. You have to, or a yawn before or a yawn after.
Exactly.
So, I just would, encourage people to do little things like that, practice little things like that.
And, it's very similar to what we were saying at the beginning, with the dogs, that you condition yourself over time. So, when I talk to my clients about doing this practice, that they have taught themselves over time to stay in the past or the future. So when you're there, you consciously bring your mind back. And consciously meaning you're going to probably have to tell yourself, come back to the present.
Yeah.
And if a moment later you went back to the past or the future, you're going to have to say again. And it becomes this tedious, like, why do I keep doing this? Because, we learn through that repetition. You're reconditioning yourself.
Yeah.
And eventually, and it's not going to take that long, but eventually that's going to be your new training.
Yeah.
So eventually something is going to go wrong in life. And you're going to realize for a moment, I'm not stressed. Why am I not stressed about this?
Right. Yeah.
And you realize you automatically stayed in the present to deal with it.
Something else is, that comes to mind as you say that is really awareness and observation, right? Because, you can be watching a really good movie right? And if you're really, really watching this good movie, you're into it. You're like, I am a character in this movie. I feel those emotions. I'm anxious. I'm scared. I'm, sad, whatever it is. And then maybe somebody comes into the room and sits down beside you and you're like, oh my gosh, that startled me, right? Which pulls you right back out of the movie so that you're watching it, not in it, right? The same thing goes for life. Life is that way. We sometimes can observe what's going on around us, which keeps us in that present moment, or we become part of the movie. And as you become part of that movie, you're watching, you're in it, and you can't always be what's the word I want to use? Impartial. Right? You can't be impartial to the situation if you're in it, because we have our emotions, they kind of take over. We have our ego, our judgments, all those things when you're in the movie. But as you observe and see what's going on around you, you're able to take that step back and really get the guidance that you need for that moment.
Yeah. A couple years ago, I wrote a blog post. It's still up on the website somewhere. About this caterpillar crossing the street. And that's one of those things, like what you were saying about living in that present moment, because when I was taking a walk and I saw this little caterpillar on the road trying to cross the road, consciously took a moment to reflect on the caterpillar.
Yeah.
And realize what it looked like, what it was doing. But then I also tried to, so it sounds strange, but you try to get into the mind of the caterpillar.
Yeah.
And realize, thinking about the small caterpillar crossing the street, that street must have been an ocean.
Right. Yeah.
And to think of the area where I'm in, this caterpillar understands only such a small portion of this greater world that I understand.
Right.
But I'm sure I don't even fully grasp how great and big this world is.
Yeah. Amen to that.
So I think part of this, also is when we move into the present moment is trying to put things into perspective. That when things get really tough for us, to remember that perspective that, we are but a portion of something which is much greater than we could probably ever imagine, because I know that caterpillar, if given the ability to imagine, could not imagine a world the size of our world, given its experience.
Sure.
So what's out there that we haven't yet experienced?
Oh, yeah.
So we can't even imagine, what's there.
So I think I just thought of a listener challenge.
Oh, perfect. Cool.
Because, here we are, we're talking about the value of now. And we started out with dogs, and now we're talking about a caterpillar. And what if we just sit back and take some time to observe nature? Observe the animals, the creatures, the plants, everything in nature, and observe, how they watch and do things in each moment, how natural it is for them. And it doesn't seem like much. And I'm sure that everybody could fit this into what they're doing in a day, but like the butterflies flying by, and the way that they flit from plant to plant, or, whatever it is, but just watch them and observe how easy it is for them to just be in that present moment.
I like it.
Yeah, I think it's simple, and I think it's very easy to incorporate, and hopefully would help us learn a new way to shift our perspective on now.
Yeah. And for those who are going to say, I'm just way too busy to be able to do this, because I used to be one of those people that would say, I'm just way too busy to be able to do this. Yeah. Set an alarm on your phone for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You've got 5 minutes. think of the time that you spend, how many of the 5-minute chunks you spend just chit-chatting with somebody else throughout the day. Or how many 5-minute chunks do you spend going to the restroom? Maybe you add an extra 5 minutes to one of those. Do you take smoke breaks? Think of all the smoke breaks you take.
And if you're that busy, you probably need the 5-minute break.
Oh, you definitely need the 5-minute break.
You will be so refreshed afterwards.
So we all have the time. If we set it as a priority, do it, you're going to find 5 minutes. I mean, it's not like you're asking them to do an hour or something. We all have that ability to find that piece of time.
Oh, yeah, I think so too.
I like this.
Well, that was pretty cool. I really appreciate it. And so glad to be doing this with you every day. I mean, every other week we do it. And, we got some new things coming. I think that we got some great ideas coming up for you guys, our listeners. So we appreciate when you #on Finding Peace and let us know about the listener challenge that you did. And we'll see you again next time, Chris.
Yeah, and just to add to that listener challenge piece, I think this one would be a good one for people to take pictures of what they're looking at in nature.
Absolutely.
So is it a leaf? Is it a butterfly, a bird, a caterpillar, or whatever? And send us those pictures. What is it in nature that you're looking at, so we can vicariously enjoy your bit of nature.
Absolutely.
So, yes, as always, this has been wonderful, and definitely appreciate all of our listeners. And if you do like what you hear, please do spread the word and let all of your social media, all of your friends know that we exist and that we're here. So,
all right.
Thank you, Missy, and thank you to the listeners. And everyone, enjoy your day.
All right. Bye-bye.